Welcome back, everybody, to All Things Nerdy, episode 47 at this point. Today we have a really cool topic, one that I didn't really realize that we were fully talking about until last week, but it's something that I've kind of been looking into the past few weeks anyway. So when I realized it, I got super excited. So I cannot wait to hear about everything that you have to share and stuff like that. Also, been working on my background. I got my figures put up in the office space, still got boxes, but gonna get rid of that. But anyways, welcome to All Things Nerdy, where today we are gonna nerd out about genealogy. Where did you come from? What about your heritage, your family, your history, all that fun stuff. I don't know exactly what we're gonna get into. We're gonna get into it. Joe?
Yep. Was going to comment on your background. Mine's always kind of like been the same with the wood and stuff. Yours is like ever evolving, just traveling the world, moving to New York. Like you've had quite the journey over this past year, and your background has always kind of reflected that, which is kind of cool. But super excited to talk about genealogy. I honestly know very little about my history and background, stuff like that. My wife did the family tree thing once, like the free trial, and trace it back to Ireland. Surprise, surprise. But without further ado, Danny, talk nerdy to us.
Hey guys, I'm Danny. I am the genealogy magician. And so to begin this podcast, we're going to do a magic trick. And so
Magic
what I need,
trick?
yes, for viewing pleasure, we're going to do a magic trick. So, and Joe and Nate, you're going to be my lovely assistants.
I love this.
So are you
Just
ready?
so everybody knows, all the listeners know, we did not prep this.
Yeah.
I have no idea what we're getting into.
I
Right?
have no idea what I'm going to do. This is totally unknown. Okay, Joe, I need you to close your eyes, pretend you're Luke on Dagobah, and Yoda's trying to calm you down. You need to focus on my voice. It's very important. You've got to get this right. Okay, now Nate, I need you to face towards Joe, and I need you to be Mickey Mouse and Fantasia and do all kinds of magic swirls with your hands towards him. Other way. You got to go towards Joe. Other way. There you go.
On my screen, that is towards Joe.
I don't know. I can't see.
Okay, good. You're doing great. Okay, now here we go. Okay, keep going. Alakazam, Alakajester, Nate, be so kind and tell us about your great granny Esther.
First off, she was a lovely lady, actually, and it's cool that you know that. I loved my grandma Esther. I actually, if I ever have a kid, I want to, like, at one point have a kid named Esther, right? If my wife and I so choose to do that, so that's awesome. Yeah, great. It's cool that you know that.
Okay, Joe, you can look. You can look now, Joe. Let's just use. I had to do some misdirection here, so we're doing magic tricks.
That's funny.
So, yeah, I thought. See, nobody knew this, but I took just your guys' names and I ran your genealogies.
Okay.
And when I
was wondering.
Nate, and when I started with you, Nate, I didn't even know your last name when I started.
I'm not concerned at all for everything you know.
Aren't you glad I'm a white hat in disguise?
Now I'm worried. Do we need to move this off morning?
Perfect.
That's pretty cool.
All right.
I was wondering when you said you're like Esther, I was like, wait, does he really have? And then they was like, how did you know? And I was like,
my grandma's name is Esther. Yeah, it was Esther. She's passed now, but God, I love that. She was. Oh, I loved her so much.
That's awesome.
So okay, now so tricks. We got a second one here. I got to prep myself here. Now for my second trick. I'm going to show everybody that while these fine gentlemen appear to be in their 30s, they're actually closer to 150. Because you see, I created a time machine and I brought them back forward from the 1870s. And they've been in the time traveler witness protection program for years. And so now I'm going to prove it to you. So here I'm going to do, I present, let's see here. How do we do this? Share screen. Okay, I didn't know we had to do this, but okay. Now let me go to here. Okay, that's Nate, right?
I can't see anything.
You can't see anything? Oh,
No,
Yeah, I think you have to add it to the presentation if you're presenting.
I don't have a. So this is the first time anybody's tried to share a screen on our podcast. So bear with us, anybody watching or listening.
Yeah.
We're going to work through it.
Okay.
And we're just as excited as you guys are because we have no idea what's coming.
Okay. Well, sure. Well, so much for that. And I can't get out of it. Okay, let's see. Cancel. President.
We got Ben who says, I always thought Nate's b-ball skills were old school. Now I know why.
Old school in that they're efficient and not flashy. They just get the job done.
Because they're from hundreds of years ago or 150 years ago.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I broke your ankles with
Well,
it. So
I guess. Okay. Well, I guess we'll have to do that part a second time because I'm not seeing how to get this thing to share.
Next time, if you want to come back, next time you can send it to me and maybe Joe or I, since we are the ones that run the account, it only let us share our screen.
Maybe. Well, actually, I got you guys' Facebooks up. I couldn't send you add friends yet because I didn't want to ruin the surprise. So I can send them to you that way, and then I can IM them to you. How's that?
That's perfect.
This is sounding like one of my pro tips, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, what happens when you go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah.
I was excited to hear about all this, but now I'm starting to be like,
what did he find out? Like, what is he about to share live on air with the rest of the world?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Did you? If you send it
Okay,
through
there's yours,
LinkedIn,
Joe.
email.
And now let me send Nate's. I'm sending all of them to you at the same time.
Okay.
So walk us through, since we can't see it, and I know Joe and I are about to see it, but like the people listening, what are we seeing? And then I'll show my camera up to the thing once I see it.
Okay, hold on. Let me get back to you guys. Okay, so what I'm doing is these are pictures of you guys, but also pictures of people that look just like you from 150 years ago. I mean, literally look just like you.
Man, what a blessing for that person 150 years ago.
I know.
Guys, here's the one he sent of me. I mean, I will have to admit.
Wait,
like,
did you send it on Facebook?
Yeah,
I
he
did.
sent it on
I
Facebook.
sent you an IM.
I have yours as well,
Okay.
Nate. I have yours. Look at that, Nate. You gotta look up.
It's a good beard. Good beard.
Yeah.
He did Steph and Nicole too, but I'll keep that off air until they give us permission to share that. But that's pretty funny. So I mean, I will have to say, 150 years ago, I was a handsome fella.
Dude, that's spot on too. Yeah.
Looking good for 150 years, man.
I mean, I always joke that I'm pale enough to be a vampire, right? I just don't sparkle. Like
There you go.
But so is this? So you mentioned when you first jumped on that you were like the genealogy magician. Is this kind of how you got that name? Like how? So you kind of take it and put a spin on it, and like you're playful with it, you're entertaining with it. So you're not just like, let's pull up a family tree and we're gonna go through this stuff. You're actually like you're putting on a show basically, like, and you're pulling some tricks out your hat, essentially that kind of stuff. Is that how you got that nickname?
It is kind of. I'm a contract with Ancestry a lot, and so when I was there, they always gave me their hardest cases because I just had an uncanny ability to just pull rabbits out of my hat, and so that's kind of the nickname I got from doing that.
So the Ancestry, like Ancestry.com, is that what you're talking about? So
Yep.
you're saying the company that pretty much everyone knows about that goes to, they call on you when they need help.
Yes. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
That's legit. You're just like, yeah, I'm
It
that guy.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. The only downside of that is I don't get any easy cases anymore.
Except for when it comes to us, you're just like, yeah, this is the easiest thing.
Yeah,
I didn't
here you
even
go,
have his
yeah.
last name, and I found him 150
Yeah.
years ago.
I mean, I'm on all socials. Like, I mean, you got to be able to. I mean, finding me probably wasn't too hard. You'll probably be like, "Yep, that's Nate. Whoop, got him."
Yep.
How far back did you go with us?
On yours, I've gone back quite a ways. I got back to about Revolutionary War period time on yours, Joe, and then I stopped. And then Nate's, I did about the same.
Okay, cool. I mean,
Yeah, and
as a
I found a bunch of neat things.
What are the neat things? What can you tell us? What can remember this is being recorded, so anything terrible, but all the good stuff.
Oh no. See, a genealogist has two rules: research and report. We don't judge. That's what, or as I call it, we don't Affleck our genealogies. There's a backstory on that one. But
that's really cool.
But Joe, your family is a military family, big time. You've got all kinds of ancestors that were in wars. And I've got a list of them right here. Your grandpa Gene was in Korea. Your grandpa Hancock was in World War II. Quinn Robinson was World War I. Reuben Jewell, William Mizell, Hardy Lankford were in Civil War. Two of them died in the Civil War. And then Isaac Carter was in the War of 1812.
That's pretty cool.
And
I didn't realize all that.
Also got a bunch of crummy ancestors. That was actually their last name. Their last name was Crummy.
Crummy. The last name was Crummy. I can believe it either way. It's fine. Okay. What about Nate? Was his ancestry steeped in war and forged?
No, mine's probably boring.
You got German. As a matter of fact, I was going to say, well, you were in Europe. I wonder if you knew that, and you were very close to where your ancestors came from.
I had no idea.
Part of Germany, north of Berlin.
Perfect.
That's where the wolves came from.
That explains the ability to drink everyone under the table, even though you don't necessarily drink.
Hey, there you go.
Past lives.
We don't got to dive too much into that. So let's talk about process, right? Because the process is what I think is really interesting and cool, and I would love to talk to you more about my family and all that off air, because I find it really interesting. I told you in the pre-session when we talked about the podcast and everything that genealogy is something. I had a conversation with my mom last week about it. I know that I'm German and have German roots and stuff like that, but outside of that, I don't know anything. I don't know about my dad's side or anything. So if I am somebody and I want to figure that out, what is your suggestion?
Okay.
Other than contacting you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's always the primary one. But yeah, start with what you know.
Put that away, Joe. Put that away. We're not getting into all that. Put that away.
Let's see here. Okay, let me get to this because I had this already prepped up for you. Because of course, I did my research, so I had things, and if I can get that page to open up here, it's sticking on me. All right. So you write down what you know. Okay. Get a pedigree chart. Get a genealogy program. There's free ones out there, or there's paid ones, and just write down what you know, and then you spread out. Ask your close relatives, what do they know, and then you go on places like Ancestry or Find My Past or wherever, and then you find other cousins. Once you've worked your tree back, you can find people who have also put their trees up, and you can contact them to get information and pictures and stories and things like that, and then. And then another thing to do is to do a genealogy trip. You find a cousin, go knock on their door. That's what I used to do. I used to go out every summer for 2 months, and when I was single and could do that, and would just do during the year. I'd do put dots on a map, and then I'd go out and connect the dots, and then I would just go out there and knock on the doors. And hi, I'm your cousin, and I'm doing genealogy. If you got a few minutes, and almost 99% of the time, yeah, come on in, let's get it all out. And we would do that. I have my scanner and everything.
Especially if you're dressed like if you come up to my door and you're wearing the shirt that you're wearing, you're you have very fun energy. I don't know if I could do it because I'm my voice is kind of low and they'd be like, "You're kind of creepy. Like, why are you here?" But like with like your shirt, can you kind of stand up and show like how you're dressed? Like, is this like your typical like you're going, you're knocking on doors, this is what you're wearing, and kind of just meeting people like that?
Back then, I wasn't. I was more dressed like you.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, back then, I was actually more like you, Joe, and less like Nate. Now I'm more like Nate. More outgoing. I was a complete introvert back then, and I still was able to do it. So you can do it too.
That's awesome, though. Like, you're just kind of, it's like networking, but inter-family networking to find out,
It is.
you know, who your family is. And I bet people are like, I mean, if someone showed up at my door and was like, "Hey, I'm your cousin. I'm just here to do research, and I really want to know about our family," like, that'd lead to a good conversation.
It would. And
For me, it would not be a good conversation. My information is like, I know where my granny lives. That's the extent of my family knowledge.
I mean, that's about my knowledge, but at least I would learn something from them, most likely. So it would still be fun. They wouldn't get much info from me.
Two-way street.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, what got you into genealogy? Like, what made you just decide, like, hey, you know what, I'm going to spend my summers like researching my family and figuring out as much as I can about my family tree?
Complete accident. Complete. Just the genealogy gods were laughing at me, and they said, "Surprise!" So going back 1993, I think it was, when I was living in Seattle, and I was watching PBS to watch a French telecourse on how to speak French. It's called French in Action. And so I kept on missing some because of my work schedule. And so the Seattle Public Library downtown had them. And so I went there to go get them and go watch them at home. So, but this time, I couldn't park like I normally did because it's on a hill. And so I had to go up on, normally I park on 5th Avenue where the affiliates were, but I couldn't. So I had to go down on 3rd Avenue. And when I go in there, there's an escalator, right? You go in the front doors and there's an escalator that goes right up. And there's a section over here on the left. It says genealogy. Like, oh, okay. So I went up, got my video, and went home. Well, when I got home, I recalled that my step-grandfather had been trying to do his genealogy for 25 years. And I was been told he got to his father and he was stuck. And he was born in Spokane. So I was like, okay, well, I went back and I said, well, let me see if I can find anything, just, for fun. Well, I went around and I went around and went around. And all of a sudden I came across city directory for Seattle and it went all the way back to 1877. It's like, whoa, that's a long time ago. So I said, well, CW was born in Spokane. So I went around the corner. Sure enough, there it was. Spokane, city directories all the way back. So he was born in 1913. I pulled that out. Angus Snedden. Don't know that name. Put it back up. 1914. William A. Snedden. That's the name I know in the household of Angus. Okay, there we go. So long story short, I went back and I said to the People's Library, and they pulled out census records and everything, got them all the way back to the 1880 census. And then I hit a brick wall and they said, okay, what do we need to do now? We need to go to the Family History Center over on 45th Northeast, and they might be able to help you. So I went over there. And I did that. And they had these computer discs. There were CDs, but they're in cases. And so you put it in. It was like a big reader, about literally this big. And you put the little disc in there, and it would read it. Type in Angus Snedden, 1855. And he was the only one that showed up. Two of the most common names in Scotland, but he was the only one that showed up. And so I found him, found his parents, found their marriages and their parents. And I did this all on my very first day. And this is
sometimes when you're just good at something, you're just good at something,
So
you were hooked.
I stuck with it. I was hooked. I was like, end of story. So I worked on that side of the family for about a year. And I asked the other cousins on the other side of that family if they were interested, and no one showed any interest. And so I started working on my mom's, and I worked on that for about 7 years. And then I reached out to my dad and started working on his. And then that's really just, it snowballed from there. And I've been all over the world. I did like you did, Nate. Back in 1999, I spent 7 months in Europe doing genealogy.
That's awesome. Wow. I wish I could have spent 4 months there. Yeah. Dude, that sounds amazing. So how long do you usually spend trying to figure out one line of the lineage, right? Like you said, your mom was 7 years, your dad was X years. Like on average, how long would you spend on, I know you did mine and Joe's very quickly to a certain point, but if you wanted to dive deeper and go even further, how long would it take you to give us a complete loop?
Unfortunately, we're finite beings. So it depends on, I mean, you can go back as far as you really want. And when you get back to a certain point, you have to kind of pick and choose your favorite lines, because otherwise you're just going to get spread out so much. Because by the time you hit back great, great, great grandparents, you're at 128 ancestors. It's just impossible to keep up on all of them. So like with me, it's my halls. And that was because my parents divorced when I was 2. I never met anybody on that side of the family. I didn't meet my dad again until I was 19. And I looked him up. And I didn't meet my uncle until I was over 30. So it was a real mystery for me. It was a real hole. And so I started researching that. And that's kind of because of that hole, that's been more of my focus, because I knew a lot of the other sides of my mom's family. I knew my great grandmother. And so she died when I was in my mid 20s. So she was like 90 something. So I knew my great grandparents very well. And so there wasn't that mystery there. So I just kind of hooked onto the halls, and I've just been going trudging back and forth on them. And now I've gotten back to about the 1200s back in England, just outside of Coventry. Wow. And we know that they came from the same area that your folks came from, Nate, in the Pomerania, or the northern Prussia area in Germany. But they came over in about 400 to 600 AD with the Saxon invasions.
Okay. So first thing, real quick, Danny, if you don't mind hanging out after this, just for a second, I would legit like to talk to you some about my family, like just what you know and all that.
Sure. Absolutely.
We don't have to dive into all that right now. Maybe when it's not being recorded, we can talk about all of it.
Happy to.
Yeah. So if you don't mind hanging back for a minute, I'd love to hear all of it. But that's crazy. So what's the craziest? I know you probably can't share direct names, but you can share descendant names. What is the craziest descendant that you have come across?
Okay, well, it's not a descendant, but I have a 4th great aunt, and she was living in Fort Covington, New York. Her name was Elizabeth Hall Vitito, and they were very poor. My Halls were loyalists, and even in the 1820s, they were still being harangued on for it. And they were very poor. I mean, literally living underground in one of those sod huts and so forth, kind of thing. And one of her sons was about to get engaged, to get married to a gal, and got her pregnant before the marriage. Well, one day she ends up dead, and Elizabeth tried blaming it on Indians. Well, the people who investigated didn't buy it, and they blamed the son for murdering his fiancée, and they ended up hanging him for it. But here's the rub: the mother's the one who did it and let her own son hang for it, and she confessed it on her deathbed in 1852.
Wow.
Yeah,
almost mom of the year.
That's scandalous. Yeah, scandalous right there. That's crazy.
I couldn't imagine. I would never do that. That's brutal. How could you let your kid
There's a side story on that too. His two of his brothers, Jonathan and James, went to him and said, "Hey, we don't believe this story that you did this, but we want proof." And so when you're about to lose consciousness, they gave him a handkerchief. They said, "When you're about to lose consciousness, switch it in your other hand if you're innocent." And he did. So they knew he was innocent.
Wow.
Yeah.
So switching to much slower gears. So from 23andMe, Ancestry.com, all that stuff. If somebody like me, a listener, wanted to go just put in their stuff and figure out what they can, which one do you recommend?
Ancestry, hands down. 2 reasons. Okay. One, has the largest database, period, by a long shot, at least double over anybody else. And 2, you can take the data from your test from Ancestry and transfer it for free to 6 other tests. So MyHeritage, FTDNA, Living DNA, all 3 of those, you can upload it. It's a limited one, but for most people, it's 2,000 hits or something like that. You don't get a full boat on it, but for most people, that's plenty. So if most people are looking for unknown fathers and stuff like that, well, you're going to get that in the first 20 hits. If it's going to show up, it'll show up there. My wife, she has a half sister, and I found her biological father in 5 minutes because he had tested and was up on one of the tests.
Do you have the lineage of my dad's side of the family? I do not. Okay.
I got the mom. That's the only one I have.
Yeah, because technically, in the eyes of the government, I don't have a pops. I have no dad on my birth certificate. So.
Yep.
Here we got a couple
And
questions.
yep.
Stephanie says, "Do the platforms crosstalk?" I assume not, but wondering if I'm on one and my tree has been worked on other sides, like will they talk? So
No,
it sounds
they
like
don't.
some of them do. Okay, but
They
so
don't.
they don't really.
The only one that kind of cross talks, but it doesn't really cross talk, is on Family Search. They have a Family Search family tree, and it's kind of like a giant world tree they're trying to put together. But you can use that in Family Tree Maker along with Ancestry, but you actually have to do the talking between them. You can download the data, but you have to manually merge it together. And so a lot of these planes. So if you have a tree on one, you got to put it on another one and another one and another one, and that's fine. But only work on choose one service that you maintain, because otherwise you're going to be spending all your time trying to maintain trees instead of researching.
Yeah.
So
Then,
if you got a favorite,
Nicole,
you take that and stick it.
yeah, that's the one we used to trace ours back a tiny bit. So I think Ancestry was what she was talking about.
I found it.
And then the next comment is Omnibac. So Nate does legally.
See, I didn't have to work that hard. I found your dad already for you, Nate.
There you go. Found it easy. Power of social media.
Good old
Right. So it's magic. See,
it's magic.
Third magic
Yeah, you didn't even do anything, just poof.
I know.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, I'm not good.
Yeah, Stephanie says a world family tree sounds like a crazy undertaking. Yeah, especially because you were talking earlier, like if you go back to what great, there's like 148 descendants, and then like it just keeps expanding. Like,
yes,
that's a lot. But
it is.
Like with newer technology, like ChatGPT, could I go to ChatGPT and be like, look up my ancestry and have it spit something out? Like I haven't tried that, but could you do something, or are there tools like Ancestry that's starting to integrate AI, that kind of stuff?
They say they are. I haven't looked into them yet, and I prefer personally, I will not use them.
Yeah, I don't think I would trust Chat. I mean, as good as ChatGPT is at like scraping databases and stuff, because it even tells you like, hey, we can be wrong, and if it gets one part of it wrong, from that point forward, all your information is skewed and wrong. Like ChatGPT is great for a lot of stuff. I use it probably more than I should, but like I wouldn't trust it for that.
Now, AI is fine as long as it's a tool that you are the master of. When the problem happens, and this happens in genealogy before AI, and I'll go into that. But if you use something as a crutch, eventually you become reliant on it, and you can't think and do things like you normally do, which is what happens has happened in genealogy. People have gotten so used Ancestry and so forth to be their crutch to get all the information that they don't have the basic genealogy skills to properly analyze it and have a feel that, hey, this doesn't feel right. And so they have these trees that they put up, and Ancestry gives them hints, and they just wrote like Pavlovian dog, just add, and that gets people in a ton of trouble. And so if ChatGPT or AI were to go in there, they're going to take the data from horrible trees, which 95% of the trees on Ancestry are what I call regurgitated garbage, because that's what they are. And what happens is because of the speed of the internet, they proliferate so much faster. So I've literally seen 5,000 trees on Ancestry, and they're wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Same thing.
So that would be, sorry about that. That would be one of my concerns is like, how do I cross check? Like if I do this myself, like if I dive in, I start going and I go, like it would show me something. And my assumption is that it's correct. I don't know how I would cross check it to make sure it's right.
That's where just practice comes in. You take the time to analyze the document. Do the dates match up? Do the places match up? This guy living down in North Carolina, but they're giving a birth record for Maine. This guy's mother died in 1950, but he was born supposedly in 1917. Okay, things like that. Yeah, those are things that trip people up a lot, because they just don't take the time to look and take 5 seconds just to say, hey, does this really add up? And so if you do that, you'll save 90% of your grief. And if you have a question, you can say, okay, I'm going to add this, but I'm going to put a note, questionable. I don't know. And then whatever you do not copy from anyone else's trees. You can look for clues there. And there are people who have done really good research, and they'll have sources and notes and all kinds of stuff, and you can take from them, but also verify. It's kind of like what Reagan said, trust but verify. So that's what you do. You just kind of get in there and just jump in and just try to find it, and then just go through and verify step by step, and just be patient, because when you don't get patient, that's when the errors happen. And then you got to go through, and like I did with Justin's, I had to take a flamethrower literally to 60% of his tree, because he did this. He did that. He was impatient and just add, and we had to just annihilate his tree. It was a a burnt stump Charlie Brown Christmas tree at the time I got done with it.
Well, had to rebuild it from the ground up pretty much. So
yes, we did.
Out of curiosity, when you were researching my side, did you happen to find any royalty in there?
Not yet. I haven't got back that far. Although I did find out who you're not related to. You're not related to Jimmy Carter.
Well, that's unfortunate, I guess. But
now, at first I thought you were, because the trees on Ancestry said you guys connected up at Moore Carter. But I dove deeper. I said, this doesn't add up. And I went and looked at the Y-DNA signatures. Y-DNA is this DNA. It goes from male to male all the way back. It's just a straight line. Jimmy Carter is an R haplotype. Your family is an I haplotype. So if there's a connection, it's about 100,000 years ago. So I don't think you're related.
And if you are, you can't claim it. It's too far back.
Yeah.
Like, it's
too
gone.
far back.
But that just goes to show, like, you dove deeper. You're looking at the chromosome, like you're looking at a lot deeper than most people will typically look. So you definitely have to take time and like verify not even just dates and stuff, but even like some of the DNA type stuff. Adam says there has to be royalty in that blood. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I can get nice things like that said.
Well, Joe is definitely related to Sea Pirate royalty, because I'm sure he's a cousin of Blackbeard. I've been calling him Redbeard for a while. And he sends ransom notes and black pouches and stuff like that. And, and he's a border reaver family. You know, he steals people's phone remotes and stuff, and ransoms them back to him.
We got Stephanie says, how do you get the DNA data for this?
Okay, well, you have to take the test. And then on Ancestry, there'll be a section for it, and it'll give you all of your cousin matches for your DNA, going from all the way to the top parents and siblings, all the way down to the level it's 8 centimorgans, which is really distant. And so, and you can be pretty confident to about 6 to 8 generations back, but there are lines that can go back to the 1600s, and we have seen them. Justin's got a 7th cousin that pops in at 100 centimorgans. Okay, normally 100 centimorgans is a second cousin once removed. So that's how much it can really stretch out. He's also got second cousins that come in at 40 when it should be 120. So you get that. And with DNA, it's the way to visualize what DNA you get is think of DNA as a sandbox. And if you get what I call a DNA bully, it's a really strong line, and it pushes all the other kids out. It doesn't play nice. And so you get this really strong line, and then you get all these little ones here. They're there, but they're really on the fringes. So it can really skew the results from the charts.
Yeah.
I know we're running over on time and that kind of thing, but when, like you're saying, like all the DNA, like some people are not going to trust giving their DNA to a company, right? So yes. Is it safe to send your DNA off to Ancestry or that kind of stuff? Is there the possibility that they could leak it out, like, and the government could have your DNA, like stuff like that?
Well, in my view, yes. So I'll give you my take on it. You leave your DNA everywhere you go. If someone wants to get your DNA, they can get it. All I have to do is trail you for a day. They can get 10 samples from you just by following you around. And if they, for like what happened, the 23andMe leak that happened a couple months ago, they can get that information, but they can get most of that information on social media too, just like I did with you guys. I got a lot of stuff off Facebook, and you're just watching your podcast. I took clues that I watched from watching those and just put them all together. Well, you can do that. And at a certain point, which we reached about 10 years ago, there's a critical mass where it matters not whether you test or not, because that's how I find unknown fathers and stuff like that. Because enough people have tested where I can do triangulation to find out who these people are. So whether you test or not, it really doesn't matter. And if you really want to get it, you can.
we're in the information age. Somebody wants it, they can figure it out. Also, we put everything on social media, right? Like I put everything. Most people put everything on social media. We are a world of sharing, essentially, right? So like it's out there. I mean, look, this ain't legal advice. Do what you want to do and all that nonsense. But like, I don't really see what an issue would be sending your stuff in because like. Dude, you drink out of a cup, you throw it away, your DNA's there. You touch something, your DNA's there. You open a door, your DNA's there. Like, or your fingerprint. But I mean, there's so many ways to collect that. Like, if somebody wanted it, they can.
And people who are, I think people that live that way, they live in fear. And I just don't, I don't do that. I do not live in fear at all. Like, okay, if it's my time for something to happen, it's going to happen and there's nothing I'm going to do about it. And so I just like, I don't worry about it. Because when you live in fear, you clam up and everything. And the whole world just comes on you and you really don't have a life. You're pretty much dead, but not knowing it. That's my kind of view on it.
Yeah.
Get up and live.
I think, in other words, YOLO. I'm just kidding. But Nicole says that trash is public property once it's on the streets. Which
yes, it is.
I mean, you throw away that cup in the trash, so then it's public property. They can get your DNA if they really wanted it anyway. So
anything that's off your property line. So even if it's on the sidewalk outside of your fence, that is public property, and that is anybody can take it. Anybody can go through it. It's no longer private property anymore at that point. That's how they busted a bunch of drug dealers and counterfeiters. They were throwing all their stuff in the trash, and they caught it and got all this evidence, and they were able to use it.
Yeah, man. Well, guys, we are a little over, and I have something that I have to go do. I'm not usually the one that has to end it, being a professional these days. But Danny, I would like to talk to you for a quick second before we dip out. Joe, do you have anything else you want to ask? Anybody listening? Any other questions or anything like that?
It's been fun for sure. The genealogy magician. We figured out why. It was been a fun podcast.
We'll have to have you back too, because I know it's short. And usually we would just keep going, but I have something that I have to do. But like, I mean, I'd love to have you back. I find this stuff so fascinating and interesting. I could talk about it for days. So Danny, we appreciate you taking the time, walking with us. You got high energy too. It's fun to listen to. Like you make it fun. I didn't know if this was going to be like a lecture or what. I was like, man, I don't know. But you make it fun. It's exciting to hear all the information coming from you. I appreciate you taking the time, man. We'll definitely get with you and set up a time for you to come back. We'll have Genealogy Magician Part 2.
Outstanding. Look forward to it.
See y'all.
See ya.